So guys, Russ Edgley here. Feels a little bit odd doing a vlog and an intro like this, but we're living in some strange times at the moment with the coronavirus. Here in the UK, we're in lockdown, and a lot of people have been asking how I'm actually training at the moment. And the honest answer is, I still don't know myself. I'm still trying to figure out how to program my strength and conditioning, which is why I wanted to do a video sort of just documenting and detailing how I'm going about doing that. So hopefully it might answer some of the questions that you have, just because I see a lot of workouts at the moment online, some good ones as well, 15-minute ab workouts or circuit training with minimal equipment. And whilst that's great, what I want to do, to quote Plato, is create a tribe of scholar athletes, so people actually understand how to spend their time, what's the best use of their time when it comes to their training. And for me, I had my entire year planned out, which I'm going to come on to this in a little bit, both as a coach and also as an athlete training for certain athletic adventures. And that's all kind of been flipped on its head now. So I'm trying to see how best to spend my time during isolation and lockdown, so when we are coming out the other end of it, I can be a better athlete and better prepared. Want to give a shout out to Hester, who is chief camera person, director and producer. Thank you.
Oh, you're very kind.
So this is it. So we don't really know what we're doing. We're making this up as we go along, aren't we, basically?
Basically. You were just very nice there.
This is it. Okay, so with this said, this right here, this is basically a typical periodized program. Don't be confused by it. A lot of Olympic athletes are using this at the moment, but a periodized program just basically means how you're manipulating certain training variables, intensity, volume, various things like that throughout a year. So a year can be considered a macro cycle. A macro cycle, again, I don't want to get too complicated, but it's just a bird's eye view of your training as a year. So if somebody said to me, Ross, how are you training in 2020? At the start, I'd have said, do you see this graph right here? I was doing a lot of volume in the winter, a lot of miles, 10K swims, running a lot, fell running, but all low intensity, high volume. So I was running and swimming very far, but not really out of breath. It was a low intensity. So intensity low, high volume, and that's where you're building a base. And that's what's considered a mesocycle. A mesocycle is just basically a smaller subdivision of your macro cycle. It allows you to chop up your year. So I was right here, basically. I was running mountains, I was swimming lakes, and I was having a great time building that athletic base. And then I was coming into spring, and what was happening right then, we were keeping the volume quite high, but we started to step up the intensity at the same time. So started to introduce more interval training into that, shorter distances, but working at a higher intensity as well. So anaerobic threshold, where you're working at an intensity where you can't supply enough oxygen to the working muscles. And that was going great up until lockdown, coronavirus. So we were about here, and what's probably worth noting is this is what a lot of Olympic athletes were probably following this year, something similar or some variation of this periodized program, where they were looking to peak in the summer, ready for the Olympics. So they were basically, their volume was coming down, so they weren't doing these crazy long sessions, but they were picking up the intensity, trying to replicate race conditions. And then they were gonna peak, bang, right in the summer, right there, boom. After which, recovery in the autumn, you celebrate, you recover, and you can repeat another macro cycle. All of that has obviously changed now. So we're here, going into spring, and we're all of a sudden in isolation, we're in lockdown. So with some of the athletes that I was coaching, a lot of the projects that I was working on, including my own, what we're now doing here is we're extending this mesocycle here. So that winter base, we're gonna continue getting wintered. That's something that I've spoken about quite a lot in the book, Art of Resilience, where Epictetus talks about that wars were fought in the summer in ancient Greece. So it was what you did in the winter, how you prepared, which would have a profound impact on your ability to fight in the summer, but what you did in the winter would impact that. So that's what we're doing here. We're getting wintered. It's general physical preparedness. So for those who have read the World's Fittest book, that's that Soviet Union principle where you're concentrating on sort of really general movement patterns, running, swimming, big compound movements, not really specializing, but you're training to train. You're improving your work capacity, so your body's ability to perform and positively tolerate training of a given intensity and duration. So that's where we're at here. With that said as well, because we're in isolation, I can't actually swim. So it's kind of unfortunate that I can't really do these high volume sessions where I'm swimming for 10K because, well, our bathtub's not very big, is it? So like, we can't really do that. So instead, one thing that I'm looking to focus on is really drilling down on those things that were perhaps neglected when we were out of isolation. So anaerobic threshold being a very good one. For those who don't know, so aerobic training is just basically where you're working at an intensity where you can provide enough oxygen to the working muscles. Good example is if you go for a run and you're running at a pace where you can hold a conversation and talk in complete sentences, that's probably aerobic. It's low intensity, slow pace, and you can do it for a marathon. But anaerobically, when you're training your anaerobic system, that's when you're running, swimming at a pace where you can't hold a conversation and speak in complete sentences. So it's a different energy system. And when I was swimming around Great Britain, I was completely aerobic. So I was swimming for 12 hours a day, long, slow paced, and I neglected my anaerobic energy system. So one thing that I'm gonna do now in lockdown is extend this base of getting wintered, but really focus on my anaerobic threshold. All that means is high intensity interval training on an assault bike. It's not pleasant. Sometimes doing 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 30 minutes. It's not pleasant, but it's something that I've neglected for quite a long time. So it's gonna be nice to get back to that. And then equally on top of that, in terms of building that base and getting wintered, I'm gonna do a lot of work on my shoulders. So rotator cuff, building stabilizers, doing a lot of passive hanging, dead hanging, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So it's basically really drilling down on those things that I've neglected or been weak at, so I can build a firmer base so that when we come to build during that mesocycle and the peak mesocycle, we're basically building from a stronger foundation. That was quite a long introduction, I do apologize, but hopefully that helps you think a little bit more about your own training. So if you were training for the London Marathon, I know that's been cancelled. Now you can start to look at your periodized program, look at your mesocycles, look at your macro cycle as a whole, and start to tailor and tweak your training program. It's exactly the same if you were competing in a bodybuilding competition, if you had an obstacle race that you're going to compete for, or you're an Olympic athlete. You'll now be readdressing this, and your strength and conditioning coach will be looking to completely rework this so that you peak. That particular mesocycle happens when we come out of isolation. So with all of that said, I'm now going to go get ready for session 1 of the day. That is strength training. You're joining me, aren't you?
Yeah, I am actually today.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I am.
Well, this is nice as well. So that's nice as well, that there's not really any, I'm not going for PBs, we've got enough weight in the gym, but equally it's just going to kind of be enjoyable. And we're really entering into this kind of winter, also active recovery, because we're eating well at the moment, aren't we?
Oh, we're eating quite a lot.
What have we got later?
We've got ribs, honey mustard ribs.
Boom! So this is another thing as well that...
Favourite.
I think like to start this year, I did 5 countries in the first 5 weeks. There's Australia, Dubai, Norway. It got a little bit crazy. So now it's nice to be home, eat good food, and relaxing my diet, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But with all of that said, I'm gonna go get ready. Stroke training. In conclusion, base, winter, mesocycle, extend. Consider your training holistically as part of your macro cycle. Thanks for listening.
Babe, do you want to tell everybody what you're actually doing?
I'm getting some.
Because to me it looks like you're just kind of, you know, using your 5 kgs as wings.
That is essentially what I'm doing. That is what I'm doing. So this is, I'm basically right now what I'm working on is shoulder mobility and shoulder strength and looking at internal and external rotation. Reason being, when isolation was announced and lockdown, I just thought it actually represented a great opportunity to drill down into things that I've probably neglected or been too busy to do. With traveling and coaching so much at the moment, I've not been able to do, you know, half an hour of shoulder mobility work. You know, when would I, if I'm honest with myself, go into the gym and sit amongst a squat rack and just start doing this? You know, I wouldn't. So for me, it's represented a really cool opportunity to do that. Also as well, even looking at brachiating. So for those who don't know, there's a theory that we share the same shoulder joint as the great apes, but as the great apes are brachiating, so they're basically holding onto a bar in this idea of a passive hang. So they're holding onto a bar, but it's passive, so they're just kind of just hanging like that. And what it does is it basically trains our shoulder joint, ligaments, tendons, everything like that to be in a position that Mother Nature always intended it to be. But now we humans, although we share the same shoulder joint as the great apes, we're sat here at work and our posture and everything is very sort of unnatural. So for me, in lockdown, it means I get to do shoulder mobilities work, internal, external rotation, whilst at the same time brachiating as well, which has been a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because if I'm completely honest, like I said, I wouldn't go into a normal gym and commandeer the squat rack and just hang for 30 minutes brachiating, looking at shoulder mobility. It's just something I wouldn't do. Whereas now in isolation, it means I can do it. So although it looks a little bit weird, that's what I'm doing at the moment, while getting out the way while you do squats. Is that what you're doing today?
I am.
Shall I film you and you can tell everyone what you're doing as well?
No one wants to know. No one wants to see that.
They do?
No, they don't.
What have you got? You're going for a PB today? Is that what you're doing?
I'm gonna squat you.
Are you actually?
Yes. You're gonna jump on my back, piggyback.
I think you might live to regret that. I've put on a lot of weight in isolation.
So have I.
I might be closer to 100 kilos now.
Really?
That is a dense 100 kilos. That is a short and stubby.
That's protein brownie kilos. I feel like you're gonna have to tell me what you're doing there.
I'm getting those gains.
Get those gains with your 2 kg.
Infraspinatus teres minor. Get it.
Sorry?
I know it hurts, buddy. Get it.
Wait, what are those 2 words that you just said?
I think looking at the kinetic chain, how the muscles, joints and everything work cohesively together, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I'm using this time just to drill some hench rotator cuffs. So when I come out, I've just got bulletproof shoulders. So if I do end up doing another, stupid swim around countries or wherever, then maybe. I'm not saying I'm going to. I'm just saying I might. I'll be prepared for it.
Well, you're not yet.
Well, no, but I'd be prepared for it, is what I'm saying. So that's the thing. And I also think as well, like isolation, not ideal, but if I was to go into a gym and commandeer a squat rack and just start drilling these rotator cuff movement, internal, external rotation, people would come over and be like, mate, what are you doing? I need to squat. And I'll be like, wait there, infraspinatus. They'd be like, get out. So I think that's a nice thing at the moment about isolation. I think it's something that everybody can learn. That yeah, absolutely, online workouts are great, but a lot of them are just so general. They're not actually specific and individualized for people. They're just kind of like burpees, press up, various things. It would be nice if people actually started to intelligently program. That is the message.
And the other message is, let's just clarify, nobody is swimming around any countries.
I'm not saying I'm going
in this house.
I'm not saying.
Are they?
I'm just saying I'll be prepared. If somebody wanted me to swim around, if somebody was like, who wants to swim around?
Nobody.
Someone might.
Nobody.
Someone might. Maybe they might. Boris Johnson might be like, look, you need just to swim around the country to combat the coronavirus. And I'll be like, oh good, because I've been training.
Also, can I just apologise to everybody about the lots of dust around here? We are going through house renovations at the moment, and I did tell Ross to clean the gym before we filmed, but...
You've just sold me down the river. Why?
Oh, I just wanted everyone to know.
Why?
Because look at all the dust. So now they know.
It's a gym.
The culprit is here. Oh gosh. Oh. Go back. Oh. Ross never really likes to train with me because he always lifts way heavier than me and he doesn't like to unrack everything.
No, because...
No.
Right, bring the camera over here. So for those watching, for boyfriends and girlfriends who train together, first time Hester ever trained with me, she felt sick.
Wait, where's this going?
She felt sick, was almost sick, and then went to sleep for 4 hours.
I had to take a nap.
So that's why we've not trained together since.
No.
Okay, so this is brachiating, as I was talking about. You'll notice it's It's also called like a passive hang. So you'll notice that my ears are up by my shoulders. So my scapula isn't in contraction, I'm just kind of hanging like this. And like I said, this is the whole idea, is we're putting the shoulder joint, decompressing the spine, and putting the shoulder joint to use like Mother Nature intended. Okay, finished my rotator cuff work, and now I'm going to start putting some weight on the bar. I'm going to start with a big heavy floor press, but I wanted to stop and just host an impromptu book club from the squat rack, which is odd, I know, but hear me out. Basically, on the GB swim, one of the factors of success that we found was the fact that my body just didn't give up. So, you know, everything from ligaments, tendons, everything, there was no repetitive strain injury, and the body was just durable enough to survive 157 days, 1,780 miles at sea. And since coming back, we were doing various studies and speaking to some experts at Loughborough University, and there was this part that I wanted to include in the book, which is all around wintered weight training. And it just says, a study in the British Journal of Sports Medicine emphatically states strength training reduced sports injuries. Now, within the book, we then explain exactly why, but it's this part here that I wanted to just quote. After studying 26,610 participants with 3,464 sports injuries, what they found was strength training, and I quote, strength training reduced sports injuries to less than 1 in 3, and overuse injuries could be almost halved. What's more, strength training performed better than both stretching or proprioception, so balance conditioning routines. And we actually detailed it there within the book as well. And I just think this is so often overlooked. You know, I know Team Sky and British Cycling, they're doing some great jobs at the moment where they're using strength training to make more robust and resilient athletes. And I just think it's so often overlooked, this idea of strength and stamina not being able to coexist. Whereas one thing that I found, and we document in the book, that when programmed efficiently in a wintered weight training program, it actually can. With that all said, now I'm going to floor press. Done! Yes! Isolation games! There she is. A noble beast. 5. Let's go, let's go, let's go. 4. Let's go. 3. 2. 1. Good. And then drop the weight. No weight. Walk it out, walk it out, walk it out, walk it out. Let's go, let's walk it out and get 20 reps. Walk it out, walk it out, walk it out, walk it out. More. Yeah, there you go. More horizontal. Let's go. There. Bang. Let's go. 20 reps. Finish up. To failure. To failure. 20 reps. 20 reps. No. Just no rep.
Just on my own.
Yeah, no weight. This is a big moment in the home gym. This is a huge PB coming from Hester Sarbury, aka Big H, Persian Powerhouse. Let's go.
Let's concentrate.
We've added, basically what's happened here, we've added a few coaching cues, added a few bands, posterior chain targeting that. Gonna get the glutes activating before we go into squats. That is amazing. That is a PB. Big. Right, I need to jump in. I'm now going to go and shift some weight. Limited by the amount of weight that we actually have, even though it is a pretty cool home gym setup. But what we're going to be doing is throwing up the 45s, incline bench press, using a slingshot as well, because we're looking at rate of force development, so it's not necessarily just the weight, it's the speed at which you're moving it, and then we're going into bear crawls. Reason being, this is almost, like I said, active recovery, also general physical preparedness. For those who don't know, from the World's Fittest book, this is basically a phase of training that the Soviet Union athletes used to pioneer when you were basically training to train. So you're building work capacity, your body's ability to perform, positively tolerate training of a given intensity and duration. So rate of force development, incline, 45s, taken for a ride into bear crawls. This is how it should look. Busting out 5 sets of 5, and just not fatiguing. I think that's the other thing as well. We've got an anaerobic session on the bike, high intensity intervals, which will leave me on the floor in a sweaty mess. So it's important with strength training, especially at the moment, like I said, it's still kind of active recovery, we're not fatiguing. You'll notice as well on those,
It's not even looking at speed. It's just kind of just looking at coordination. Again, general physical preparedness, getting the body's joints, muscles all to work cohesively together. That is the goal at the moment. It has descended into chaos now. Jumped on the air bike. The sun is out as well. So we're going to go and take our post-workout meal in there. Hester's busting out intervals. I'm getting naked. About to hit triceps. Now busting out some cheeky band resisted tricep extensions. But this is actually a good point, just because obviously with isolation and lockdown, I'm not swimming at the moment. So it just means that I'm trying to replicate similar movement patterns in the squat rack that I'd be using when I'm swimming. Sounds complicated, it's not. It just means basically on my pull-ups, you know, my grip is there rather than wide. I'm trying to replicate the start of the pull phase of my front crawl stroke, exactly the same here. You know, that pull propulsion phase of the stroke. I'm trying to replicate that tricep extension to do the same, which is why I'm using my wrist wraps, so I can actually keep open palms and try to replicate something that looks like a swim stroke. It's not ideal, but it's all we have at the moment.
As you can see, guys, our kitchen has become a running track or a bear crawl track.
What are you doing? It's your set.
Wave to the camera.
It's your set. She loves training with me, really. This is why we don't train together, because I was getting... This is why we don't train together, because I get in trouble. She asked me to train her, and then I train her, and then this happens. Last time we trained together. Last time we trained. This is actually something that I'm enjoying about isolation, and that is that the kitchen is so close to the gym. So it means that I can go from lifting my last weight to the kitchen. I think my record was 20 seconds. From the dumbbell hitting the floor to a protein bar actually being in my face. But I keep this quite simple at the moment. So taking a lot of glutamine to support the immune system. Also as well BCAAs, where we're at BCAAs, specifically leucine. Also as well creatine. Creatine's a weird one just because there's no nutrient window. There's no necessarily best time to take it. But with that said, it makes sense to take it post-workout just because muscle glycogen completely depleted. Your muscles are in a very absorbent state. So kind of makes sense that everything that you do have means that all of that creatine is basically going to be shuttled to the muscle. But with all of that said, what I like to do, and sometimes I don't even really measure it, I'm eating so relaxed and intuitive at the moment that I'm just hitting around 40 grams, if I had to guess, 40, 50 grams of protein. But like I said, I'm enjoying the fact that I don't have to measure anything at the moment. I can just eat so intuitively. So how many of those do we go through?
You go through 6 of those a week.
So, do I actually? So what, 3 litres of yogurt a week? This is a weird story. When I lived as a Sam Bushman in Namibia, I hunted for a month, and the only thing that we had was a porcupine during all that time, and we drank from an elephant water hole. So you had to eat porcupine, it's kind of like furry leather, and then drink with like elephant feces basically floating around in the pond. I know it's not a nice story, I can see from your face. But my point is I'm going somewhere with it. And then afterwards, when I arrived back to sort of civilization out of the bush, yogurt was something that like was nice because it meant that it quenched my hunger and thirst. So that's why I like yogurt.
I think it's fair to say your favourite foods are yogurt and cheesecake.
I like dairy.
Drinks all the almond milk in the house too. Let everyone see the bowl.
No, I'm a good cook. I'm a good cook.
See what your concoction is.
There you go. Ooh. And I'm just going to add a PhD bar.
Okay.
And we're just going to do this with it like this.
Yeah.
But this is not a good cooking channel.
That looks really nice actually.
There you go. That super green shake.
Yep.
With BCAAs, glutamine, and creatine. I'll be in the garden if you need me. This is the awkward stage just before you jump on the air bike and start doing interval training. It's never pleasant. When I was training with the Cambridge rowing team, Steve Trapmore, the head coach, I always loved this. He said it's like staring down the barrel of a gun.
on this, I'm going to show you his protein stash. And this is what I have to contend with. All of that.
So I've recovered now. I've managed to get up off the floor. I think one thing that's always interesting about anaerobic training or interval training is so often the body doesn't understand sets, reps, time, rest periods. What it does understand is just stress and stimuli. And that is the key to adaptation. I think so often, certainly in sports science, we start thinking about reps, sets, and we just get confused. Whereas ultimately, it's just got to hurt for you to adapt. We've known that since Hans Selye, 1936, general adaptation syndrome. Gave rats a little bit of poison, and they built up an intolerance to it. So we built this lab full of indestructible lab rats. And I always say, that's exactly what your strength and conditioning should be. You should try to become an indestructible lab rat. I'm gonna go and raid the fridge. Okay, we are now at the business end of the day. By business end, I mean the kitchen.
Do you want me to explain what we've got here?
Yes, please. That looks amazing.
So, we have got honey and mustard glazed short ribs, which have been in the oven for 8 hours.
Oh, boom, boom,
Yes.
boom,
And
boom,
then
boom.
we've only got one portion of Crispies, which we call it. Which is the
Yeah, for
honey
those who don't know,
mustard and,
Crispies are vegetables that are coated in what?
we've coated with honey and parsnips and carrots, but as you can see, there's only one portion because you've already been in the oven today.
I can only apologise. So this is what happened. No. So Hester makes more because she knows throughout the day if she's cooking that little bits might go missing.
This is basically what happens. I cook the meals and then Ross sneaks in, gets what he wants from the oven, and then creeps off.
I was going catabolic.
No, you always say, he goes, I'm going catabolic.
And then we're putting vegetables on there.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that is breakfast of champions.
Lots of greens, lots of carrots.
That is immense. What is always funny about this is Hester will make exactly the same portion for herself, but her eyes are always too big for her belly, which means that I will probably get half of that. So that one's mine.
No, don't.
I reckon. I think I'll get about half of that, maybe more, and then we've got protein brownie later as well.
That's honey mustard gravy.
It is unbelievable. I could drink that.
It
To be
amazing.
honest, I could actually drink that.
That is our favourite gravy, isn't it?
I think with isolation and lockdown, a lot of people are saying like, how's my diet going? And in all honesty, it's just kind of relaxed because speaking to a lot of my friends who were obviously periodizing their training, everything was kind of getting ready for the Olympics, looking at body composition as well. So a few of my friends who were swimmers, it was almost like a Formula One car. They were looking at their body going, okay, need to get leaner, take, just like literally talking grams of power to weight ratio off and just perfecting their body. Whereas now they don't have to, so they're almost taking their foot off the gas pedal a little bit. And I feel like it's kind of the same at the moment. I don't have to be big, lean, I'm not running, I'm not swimming. So it's kind of nice at the moment to almost kind of active recovery, I suppose, is what I'm doing. So I'm hitting that 1.7 grams of protein per kg of body weight per day, based on the International Olympic Committee consensus on sports nutrition. But then other than that, it's kind of like, I don't really need copious amounts of your two energy yielding macronutrients of fats and carbs, because I'm just not swimming 10K a day at the moment. So whilst I'm taking care of all of my protein requirements and then also as well micronutrients as well, certainly taking care of my immune system. So that's why I'm always at the moment making shakes, super greens, glutamine as well. I think the main thing is just trying to get as many just quality whole foods in as possible, which is why that people ask what a typical meal for me. That is kind of a typical meal. Super greens, protein, and then just lots of vegetables. No, I'm not limiting my carbs or fats, but I just don't need as many because I'm not swimming 10K, if that makes sense. So I'm eating intuitively, and it's kind of nice to take my foot off the gas pedal just a little bit. No day is now complete until we've had brownie. So what has happened, we've had baths and showers, you're in your pajamas,
I don't have pajamas. This is what I have to live with. Because Hester, holding the camera, makes cakes for a living. That's what she does. She comes home with chocolate buttons. You've been named and shamed. So if I come out of isolation and I'm about 100 kilos, that's the reason why. It doesn't even stop there. Is this what I think it is? Chocolate frogs!
Can I just say, you're doing that a lot more gently than the other night. You just smacked them on there the other night.
15 minutes. Done.
But what Ross was going to say as well was, if it's not done in 15 minutes, just pop it back in probably for another 5 and it'll be done.
The brownie's been in there for 15 minutes and somehow it's acquired some cream eggs on the top. When Did you have something to do with this? Let's start decorating it. I'm putting ice cream and yogurt on mine and syrup. That's what's going down.
But can you just say, isn't this the best Easter chocolate brownie?
Is that what we're calling it?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you did there. That's why you put them on.
Because it's Easter.
So you did put them on.
Alright then.
That does look obscene.
See?
It started out so healthy.
Doesn't it look so pretty though?
How many eggs did you put on there? How many chocolate eggs?
3, I think.
You don't even know.
I know I have. I put 3 and some mini eggs.
Oh, the
Because
game.
it's Easter, isn't it?
Oh, don't make me run. I want chocolate.
Right. Which half do you want?
The big one, big half.
Is that this half? Oh my gosh! Look how nice that looks.
Oh my
Oh, I couldn't
god.
cut it. I don't think I did that properly.
I'm going to emerge from isolation with absolute sumo.
Oh, I'm gonna have to roll you out the door now.
No.
You're gonna have to do the same to me, babes.
Are you putting ice cream and yogurt?
Oh yeah. Actually, no. I think you've eaten all the yogurt.
I might have done. No.
You've eaten all the yogurt.